The playground at Harmony Station Educational Complex buzzed with the kind of chaotic energy that only 100 children from 20 different species could generate. Marcus Thompson sat on the edge of the equipment platform, watching the familiar patterns of recess unfold while absently spinning a rubber ball between his hands. Human kids clustered around the swing sets and climbing structures, their voices mixing in the comfortable chatter of shared jokes and ongoing games. A group of young Centauri had claimed the far corner, their scaled skin glinting in the artificial sunlight as they played some kind of coordinated jumping game. The Andromedan children floated in their environmental suits near the zero-gravity section, their tentacles weaving through obstacle courses designed specifically for their physiology. And there, at the very edge of the playground where the safety barriers met the station's corridor windows, stood Zara. Marcus had been noticing her for weeks now, this lonely figure who seemed to exist in the spaces between other people's activities. She was Kethani, the only one in their school, with the pointed ears and naturally luminous skin that marked her species. Right now, that skin showed a dull blue-gray that Marcus had learned indicated sadness or resignation. "Hey Marcus," called his friend Jake from the basketball court. "You coming or what?" Marcus glanced toward his usual group, then back at Zara. She was watching a group of human girls playing some kind of ball game that involved complex passing patterns and lots of laughter. Her posture suggested interest, maybe even longing, but she maintained her careful distance from the activity. In a minute, Marcus called back, continuing to study the isolated alien girl. Zara's position was carefully chosen, close enough to observe and learn the rules of various games, but far enough away to avoid the awkwardness of being politely excluded. Marcus had seen this pattern before during classroom activities. Teachers would encourage group formation, and Zara would position herself hopefully nearby, only to watch as children naturally gravitated toward familiar faces and shared cultural references. It wasn't that the other kids were mean to her. Harmony Station's educational philosophy emphasized tolerance and cooperation between species. But tolerance, Marcus was beginning to realize, wasn't the same thing as inclusion. Being polite to someone wasn't the same as choosing them as a friend. "Marcus, seriously, we're starting the game." Jake's voice carried an edge of impatience. Marcus stood up, still gripping the ball, but instead of heading toward the basketball court, he found his feet carrying him toward the quiet corner where Zara stood watching the world pass by. She noticed his approach when he was still several meters away, her luminous skin shifting to a cautious yellow-green that Marcus had observed meant uncertainty or mild anxiety. Her dark eyes tracked his movement with the kind of careful attention that suggested she'd learned to be wary of unexpected interactions. "Hi," Marcus said, stopping a respectful distance away. "I'm Marcus. We're in the same advanced mathematics class." "I know who you are," Zara replied quietly, her accent giving the standard words a musical quality. "You're the one who corrected Professor Williams about the quantum probability calculations." Marcus grinned, surprised that she'd noticed. "That was probably showing off. My mom's a theoretical physicist, so I hear about that stuff at dinner." Zara's skin brightened slightly, the blue-gray shifting toward a more neutral green. "Your calculations were correct. I checked them later." "You did? That's actually really cool. I wasn't sure if I'd explained it right." For the first time since Marcus had approached, Zara's expression showed genuine interest rather than wariness. Kethani mathematics uses different base systems, but the principles are universal. Your insight about probability cascades was quite sophisticated. Marcus felt his estimation of Zara's intelligence climbing rapidly. In their classroom discussions, she usually remained quiet, contributing only when directly asked. He'd assumed she was struggling with the language barrier or cultural differences, not that she was analyzing and verifying other students' work in her spare time. "That's amazing," he said honestly. "I bet you could teach me things about mathematics that even my mom doesn't know." Zara's skin flickered through several color patterns that Marcus couldn't interpret, settling on something that looked almost hopeful. "You would be interested in Kethani mathematical concepts." "Definitely. But right now." Marcus tossed the ball gently from one hand to the other. I was wondering if you wanted to play catch. I noticed you watching the other games, and I thought maybe you'd like to try something. The hope in Zara's expression was immediately replaced by confusion, her skin cycling through uncertainty patterns. You want to play with me? Sure. Why wouldn't I? Zara glanced around the playground, as if checking to see whether this was some kind of elaborate joke being performed for an audience. But your friends are waiting for you. Marcus looked over at the basketball court where Jake and the others had indeed started their game without him. They'll survive. Besides, I'd rather play catch with someone who can discuss quantum mathematics than shoot hoops with people who think advanced math is calculating sports statistics. For the first time since Marcus had known her, Zara's skin shifted to a warm golden color that seemed to radiate genuine happiness. A small smile tugged at the corners of her mouth. I have never played catch, she admitted. But I would like to learn. Over the following days, Marcus began to understand just how isolated Zara's experience at Harmony Station had been. During their impromptu catch sessions, she revealed details about her daily life that painted a picture of someone trying desperately to fit into a world that had no clear place for her. The other Kethani children are still on our homeworld, Zara explained as they practiced throwing and catching in the quieter section of the playground. My parents wanted me to experience human education, but sometimes I wonder if they understood what that would mean. Marcus threw the ball in a gentle arc, noting how Zara's reflexes were actually faster than most human children's. You mean being the only one? Not just that, Zara caught the ball smoothly and prepared to throw it back. Everything here is designed for human social patterns. Even when the teachers try to include other species, the basic assumptions are human. Like how? Group projects, for instance. Humans naturally form partnerships based on existing friendships or similar interests. But Kethani children are taught to work with whoever needs assistance most, regardless of personal preference. Zara's throw was perfectly aimed. So when groups form, I wait to see who might need help, while everyone else has already chosen their friends. Marcus caught the ball and paused, processing this cultural insight. So you're trying to be helpful, but it looks like you don't want to participate? Exactly. And by the time I realize no one needs assistance, all the groups are already formed. That's... Marcus struggled to find the right word. That's really frustrating. Zara's skin shifted to a rueful blue-green. I have learned to adapt. But sometimes I watch the other children laughing together and wonder what I am doing wrong. You're not doing anything wrong, Marcus said firmly. The system is wrong. It's not designed for someone like you. Someone like me. Someone who thinks about helping others before helping yourself. That's actually pretty amazing, but it doesn't work well in a competitive environment. They continued their game in comfortable silence for several minutes, with Marcus observing how Zara's natural athleticism complemented her obvious intelligence. She learned new throwing techniques after seeing them demonstrated once, and her spatial reasoning allowed her to predict the ball's trajectory with remarkable accuracy. Marcus, Zara said during a pause in their game, can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you choose to play with me instead of your usual friends? Marcus considered the question carefully. I guess I was tired of watching you stand alone. And I was curious about you. You're obviously really smart, but you never speak up in class discussions. Kethani children are taught not to display knowledge unless specifically requested. Showing off individual abilities is considered rude. But that means nobody knows how much you understand. True. Zara's skin showed thoughtful patterns. I have been observing human social customs, but some of them contradict my cultural training. Like what? Humans seem to value confidence and self-promotion. Kethani value modesty and group harmony. These approaches do not integrate well. Marcus threw the ball higher this time, giving Zara a chance to demonstrate her impressive jumping ability. Maybe you don't have to choose one or the other. Maybe you can be yourself and still find ways to connect with human kids. Is that what you are doing? Teaching me to be more human? The question caught Marcus off guard. No, definitely not. I like that you're different. I was thinking more about teaching the human kids to appreciate what makes you special. Zara's skin brightened to a warm amber color. That is a much better approach. As their friendship developed, Marcus began to notice things about the school environment that had previously escaped his attention. The way group activities naturally excluded anyone who didn't understand unspoken social rules. The casual assumptions about shared cultural references that left non-human children confused or left out. The subtle pressure to conform to human social patterns that forced alien children to choose between authenticity and acceptance. I never realized how hard this must be, Marcus admitted one day as they practiced a more complex catching game that Zara had suggested. Everything here is set up for people like me. It is not intentional, Zara replied charitably. But intention and impact are different things. What do you mean? The teachers genuinely want to include everyone. But the systems they use assume everyone starts with the same social knowledge and cultural framework. Marcus caught the ball and held it, struck by the sophistication of Zara's analysis. You've really thought about this. I have had considerable time to observe and analyze, Zara said with what Marcus was learning to recognize as Kethani humor, subtle and slightly self-deprecating. Well, your observations are helping me understand things I never noticed before. That's pretty valuable. Zara's skin displayed pleasure patterns that reminded Marcus of warm sunlight filtering through leaves. Thank you, Marcus. For the first time since arriving here, I feel like someone sees me as more than just the alien girl. You're definitely more than that, Marcus agreed. You're the smartest person in our math class, you're teaching me things about perspective I never would have learned otherwise, and you're becoming a really good friend. The golden glow that spread across Zara's skin was so bright that other children in the playground began to notice, their attention drawn by the beautiful display of bioluminescence that indicated genuine Kethani happiness. The breakthrough came during a particularly crowded recess when several classes had combined their outdoor time due to scheduling conflicts. The playground buzzed with more activity than usual as children from different age groups mixed together, creating opportunities for new interactions alongside the usual social hierarchies. Marcus found Zara in her typical position at the edge of a large group activity, a complicated ball game that required teams of 6 players each. Her skin showed the telltale patterns Marcus had learned to recognize, interested observation mixed with resigned acceptance that she wouldn't be included. Why don't you just ask to join? Marcus had suggested this approach before, but Zara always had reasons why it wouldn't work. Watch, Zara said quietly, nodding toward the team formation process. Marcus observed as children naturally clustered with their established friend groups. The team captains, both human kids from the older classes, began selecting players with the casual efficiency of people who knew exactly who they wanted. Friends picked friends, athletic kids chose other athletic kids, and within minutes, teams were formed with mathematical precision that left exactly 0 spaces for outsiders. Sarah, one of the captains, called to a girl standing uncertainly at the edge of the group. Want to play? We need one more. The girl's face lit up as she hurried to join the team, leaving Zara standing alone in the slowly emptying space as the selected players moved onto the field. See? Zara said with matter-of-fact sadness. They do not deliberately exclude me. They simply do not think to include me. Marcus felt a surge of frustration on his friend's behalf. That's not fair. It is natural. Humans are social creatures who form bonds based on familiarity and shared experience. I have neither. You have shared experiences. You're in the same classes, you live in the same station. But I do not have shared cultural references, common childhood games, or intuitive understanding of human social cues. Zara's skin shifted to resigned blue. I am functionally invisible during social selection processes. Marcus watched the game begin, noting how the players moved with practiced coordination that came from months or years of playing together. Zara was right. Even if someone had invited her to join, she would have been at a disadvantage due to unfamiliarity with the unspoken rules and strategies that the other children took for granted. "Okay," Marcus said, making a decision. "Then we need to change the approach." "What do you mean?" "Instead of trying to get you included in their games, what if we started our own? Something that doesn't depend on existing social groups or cultural knowledge." Zara's expression showed curiosity mixed with skepticism. "What kind of game?" Marcus looked around the playground, noting the various species and age groups scattered across different activities. "Something that uses your strengths instead of highlighting your differences. You're incredibly smart, you have better reflexes than most humans, and you understand mathematical patterns better than anyone else here. But I still do not understand human social dynamics. Maybe that's actually an advantage. You see things the rest of us miss because we're too caught up in the social stuff to pay attention to what's actually happening." Marcus pulled out his data pad and began sketching a rough diagram. "What if we created a game that requires problem solving and spatial reasoning? Something where being different is helpful rather than a disadvantage." Zara moved closer to study his sketch, her interest evident in the brightening patterns across her skin. "This looks like a modified treasure hunt with mathematical components." "Exactly. Teams would have to solve puzzles to find clues, but the puzzles would require different types of thinking. Visual spatial problems, mathematical calculations, pattern recognition, logical deduction. A game that rewards diverse cognitive approaches rather than social cohesion," Zara said, understanding immediately. "Right. And since it's new, nobody would have an advantage from prior experience. Everyone would be learning together." Zara's skin began showing the warm golden patterns that Marcus had learned indicated genuine excitement. "This could work. But how do we convince others to try something completely unfamiliar?" Marcus grinned. "We make it irresistible. We test it ourselves first, work out the mechanics, then demonstrate it for others. Once people see how fun it is, they'll want to participate. And if teams require mixed skills, social grouping becomes less important than cognitive diversity." "Exactly." Marcus felt the excitement building as the idea developed. Someone good at math, someone with strong visual processing, someone with logical reasoning skills, the teams that work best would be the ones that include different types of thinking. They spent the rest of recess developing the concept, with Zara's mathematical mind helping to balance the puzzle difficulty while Marcus considered the social dynamics that would encourage participation. By the time the outdoor period ended, they had outlined a game that was sophisticated enough to challenge older students while remaining accessible to younger children. "Marcus," Zara said as they packed up their notes, "this is the first time since arriving at Harmony Station that I have felt genuinely excited about a social activity." "Really? Really? For the first time, I can see a way to participate that does not require me to pretend to be something I am not." Marcus felt a warm satisfaction at seeing his friend's enthusiasm. "And for the first time, I'm excited about a game that might actually teach people something important." "What do you mean?" "That being different isn't a problem to be solved, it's a resource to be appreciated." Zara's skin erupted in brilliant golden patterns that caught the attention of several nearby children. "I believe this game might change more than just recess activities." "I hope so," Marcus replied. "I really hope so." The first test of their new game took place the following week during a smaller recess period when Marcus and Zara could observe how children interacted without the pressure of large group dynamics. They had spent several evenings refining the puzzle mechanics and creating the first set of challenges, with Zara contributing mathematical elements that Marcus never would have conceived. "Ready?" Marcus asked, pulling out the materials they had prepared. "As ready as one can be for a social experiment," Zara replied, her skin showing nervous but excited patterns. They set up their game in a section of the playground that offered enough space for movement while remaining visible to other children. The first challenge required participants to decode a mathematical sequence to reveal the location of the next clue, followed by a spatial reasoning puzzle that revealed a hidden pattern in the playground equipment. "What are you guys doing?" asked Sarah, the same girl Marcus had watched join the ball game the previous week. Testing a new game, Marcus replied casually. Want to see how it works? Sarah's curiosity drew her closer as Marcus and Zara demonstrated the first puzzle. That's actually pretty cool. Is it hard? Some parts are easier for some people than others, Zara explained, her confidence growing as she found herself in the unfamiliar position of having expertise that others wanted to access. This mathematical sequence might be simple for someone who enjoys numbers, but the spatial puzzle requires different thinking skills. Can I try? Marcus and Zara exchanged glances, recognizing their first real test case. Sure, but it works better with teams. The puzzles are designed so that different people contribute different strengths. Within minutes, Sarah's attempt to solve the mathematical sequence had attracted Jake and two other children who were curious about the activity that seemed to require actual thinking rather than just physical coordination. I can't figure out this number pattern, Sarah admitted, studying Zara's carefully constructed sequence. May I look? Zara asked politely. Yeah, definitely. Zara examined the sequence and began explaining the underlying mathematical principle, her natural teaching ability emerging as she helped Sarah understand the logic behind the pattern. Meanwhile, Marcus watched Jake tackle the spatial reasoning component with the kind of focused intensity that Marcus had never seen him apply to academic subjects. This is actually really challenging, Jake said, sounding more impressed than frustrated. But I think I see how the pieces fit together. The mathematical part makes sense now, Sarah added, working through Zara's explanation with obvious understanding. But I'm totally lost on the spatial stuff. That is perfectly normal, Zara assured her. Different minds excel at different types of problems. The game is designed so that teams with diverse thinking styles have advantages. More children began gathering as word spread about the new activity that was apparently both educational and entertaining. Marcus noted with satisfaction that the puzzle-solving process naturally created mixed groups. Children who had never interacted before found themselves working together because their cognitive strengths complemented each other. Zara, how did you make this math part so tricky but still solvable? Asked Elena, one of the older students who had observed the game with obvious interest. Mathematical puzzles should challenge thinking without creating frustration, Zara explained, her skin bright with pleasure at being recognized for her expertise. The key is providing enough information for logical deduction while requiring genuine problem-solving effort. Marcus watched in amazement as his normally quiet friend became animated and confident while discussing the game mechanics with an increasingly large group of children. Her natural intelligence and teaching ability were finally being showcased in a context where they could be appreciated rather than overlooked. Can we play the full version? Jake asked. This is way more interesting than just running around with a ball. We need teams, Marcus explained. Groups of 3 or 4 work best, with each team including different types of thinkers. The team formation process that followed was unlike anything Marcus had observed before. Instead of the usual social clustering, children began asking each other about their strengths and interests. Who was good at math? Who enjoyed visual puzzles? Who had strong logical reasoning skills? I'm terrible at numbers, but I'm really good at seeing patterns and shapes, offered Tom, a quiet boy from their class who rarely participated in playground activities. Perfect, said Elena. I can handle the mathematical stuff, but I need help with the visual components. Zara found herself actively recruited by multiple teams. Her mathematical abilities suddenly transformed from invisible academic achievement into valuable social currency. For the first time since arriving at Harmony Station, other children were seeking her participation rather than politely tolerating her presence. This is incredible, Marcus told her quietly as they watched the teams organize themselves based on cognitive diversity rather than social familiarity. I never imagined that being good at mathematics could make me popular, Zara replied, her skin glowing with happiness that was impossible to miss. The game itself exceeded their expectations, with teams working through increasingly complex challenges that required genuine collaboration and creative problem-solving. Children who had never spoken to each other before found themselves celebrating shared victories and working through difficulties together. But the most remarkable moment came when Zara's team completed the final challenge first, and instead of individual celebration, they immediately began helping other teams understand the solution techniques. "Wait," Sarah called out as Zara started to explain her mathematical approach, "everyone should hear this. Zara, can you show all of us how you figured out that sequence?" Marcus watched in wonder as his friend, who just weeks earlier had stood alone at the edges of playground activities, found herself at the center of an eager group of children who genuinely wanted to learn from her expertise. Zara's explanation was clear, patient, and encouraging, helping other children understand not just the specific solution but the general principles that could apply to future puzzles. Her natural teaching ability, combined with her obvious pleasure at being able to share her knowledge, created exactly the kind of positive interaction that the integration program had always hoped to achieve. "This is so much better than regular games," Elena announced when Zara finished her explanation. "I actually learned something, and I had fun doing it. Can we play again tomorrow?" Jake asked. "Maybe with even harder puzzles?" Marcus looked at Zara, whose skin was radiating such brilliant golden patterns that she seemed to be lit from within. "What do you think? Ready to become the most popular game designer at Harmony Station?" Zara's laugh, the same joyful sound that had first emerged when Marcus tossed her a ball weeks earlier, rang across the playground, but this time it was joined by the laughter of a dozen other children who were discovering that the most rewarding games were the ones that celebrated differences rather than concealing them. "I think," Zara said, her eyes bright with happiness and confidence, "that we have created something special. Something that proves that being different is not a disadvantage to overcome, but a strength to be shared." As the children dispersed with excited plans for tomorrow's game variations, Marcus reflected on how a simple act of inclusion had evolved into something that transformed not just Zara's experience, but the entire social dynamic of their school community. Sometimes, he realized, the most important changes began with one person deciding that standing alone was not acceptable when standing together was possible.